Welcome in, everybody, to the In Off the Bench podcast. No intro, no Daniel, not needed, because In Off the Bench meets Road to Omaha podcast. We got our guy JP in the building. JP, how you doing this morning?
I'm good, man. How are you? I appreciate you having me on.
Absolutely, man. We're gonna get into college baseball, and we're gonna talk about your thoughts, my thoughts. But before we do, we need to introduce the guests who maybe aren't familiar with you. Where did you play at?
Yeah, so I played my first 2 years at Elon University in North Carolina, and then finished up at the University of Cincinnati, which is where I'm originally from.
Okay. And, obviously you have that, knowing of the game, knowing of the players, how it works. Did that have something to do with why you decided to start the podcast, or is it just, man, your ultimate love for the game and you wanted to talk about it?
Yeah, so we originally started the podcast. It was me and my two older brothers, who we all three played collegiate sports, and it started as just a sports podcast. We kind of left it broad, left it open, and then their schedules got busy. We got to see that our traction on some of the college baseball stuff was doing better than others. I personally, that's where I feel like I have had the most credibility and just, I mean, I'm only this year will be my second year out of college baseball, so I still am finding every way to stay in the game. I love it. I love following it. I'll watch college more than I do the MLB up until the end of the year and it gets to the playoffs. So I just love college baseball. And I think these guys work so hard, and I know how much time they put in. And the game has grown a ton in the past 5 years, but I still think there's more room to go. And these coaches and players deserve all the recognition they could get.
Absolutely. I mean, I think you jumped in at the right time. Obviously, you talked about it. It's continuing to grow. The ratings show that, but you have knowledge, and I stand by this. Anybody who's listened to our show for the last 4+ years, there's a reason why I like talking to the baseball players. And for me, JP, not ever playing baseball, people always say, how do you know so much? How do you predict things so much? It's not even me. It's me listening to what those who play tell me. I value the guys on the field more than anything. So, like, let's say, because I'm an LSU fan, I can text Jake Brown and say, who's the guy that I need to get on the podcast? Who's the guy that everybody needs to know? And he says Derek Curriell and goes on and tells me all these things. So when I start propping Derek up to be SEC Freshman of the Year, it's because I got Jake, and then he's not the only one. He's just the first one telling me they're watching this guy grind day in and day out. And so you being somebody who's been behind the curtain, I value what you're going to bring to this. That's why I wanted to do this to you, because guys can sit around and watch all they want and talk all they want. But, man, it's about that insight within the game. But I love that you're into it now. Like I have the reason why I think college baseball is getting as big as it is, like, you can look at a direct reflection of, the rise of the SEC and ACC in the recent years, and then some of the big star power, like even Tennessee as a team, whether you love them or hate them, that 21-22 team that people hated, you can check the viewership. It was right there with them. And then you had, the whole Skeens and Cruz thing with LSU. And then this past year, whole gamut of teams. And like I said, the ACC, SEC, like, I think we could be there again. We're going to get into that. But I feel like those two conferences have definitely, stood above the rest. But the other thing I wanted to ask you, as you talked about, you've gotten out of the other sports and into the one sport. I was listening to them talk on ESPN radio this morning, JP, without your bias. You said you like going, to college baseball more than MLB, but they were actually talking about randomly how going to Omaha was the best sporting event you could go to. I ask you, is the reason why college baseball people need to get on board is because you're not talking about one game. You're talking about a series in a destination that's going to be, the tailgates and everything that comes with it, the whole experience. It's not over in just one day. And then when you go to Omaha, it's an 11-day experience. Is that the difference?
Yeah, I think one of the biggest differences for me is obviously when you watch the MLB, these guys are playing 162 games and they're getting paid this amount of money, and some of that stuff is not going to change their role in the team, right? If this guy's getting paid however many millions of dollars, he's going to be the guy at that position no matter what. And we're seeing that creep into college baseball, but there's also a sense of if that guy's not busting it down the line every game, he's going to get benched in college. Where in the MLB, it's understandable, but that's starting to get away a little bit, especially in the regular season. And I just know that in college, these guys got to bust it, or else they got someone coming for their spot every game. I've been on both sides of the table. And
this year, LSU, the depth, we've talked about that. You better not waste your opportunity when your number's called, because there's so many guys behind you. You may not get another chance.
And that's what I think is so exciting to watch about it, is you just really get to see that passion every single day on the field throughout the regular season and the postseason.
No doubt. Well, let's get into it, man. They released the Golden Spikes watch list yesterday. I would have my graphic up, but Georgia, do better, man. You don't have a Trey Phelps graphic yet, so I can put all the guys into one graphic. But, yeah, I love the names on the list across the board. We do have 12 of our guys that we'll be rooting for. But I ask you, if you could pick a top 3 guys, and the reason I went top 3 is because just in case Jace Laviolette was your answer, we need to hear others. So who are your top
100%. 100%. And that's what Jace Laviolette is, definitely one of them. I know he's the front runner on the number 1 team. You're going to like my other pick. And I will start, when I was looking through this list and just who's won it in the past, I was a position player. We've seen a lot more position players win it. People like the homers. They like all the excitement. So I picked all 3 position players. So I got Jace Laviolette, not a whole lot of explanation needed there. My next one, you're gonna like this one, is Jared Jones from LSU. Just looking at the numbers, I just looked at these guys' stats briefly, and looking at his numbers, I mean, you saw him uptick in power a ton. The average stayed the same, and the strikeouts didn't really change, and he got walked more. So
let me ask you this: why is there such? You can look across all the different, Baseball America, D1, all of them. There's like a love-hate. Like some have him like on first team and some have him on no team. Why is that? Because you just talked about his offensive numbers, and we know defensively he might be highly underrated because he's elite.
Yeah, I honestly don't know. That's another reason why. And I mean, I think the further we get into these conversations, you'll see is I kind of like to pick the not necessarily underdogs, but it's like anyone can look on a stat sheet and just pick the best dudes based off stats. And I really just like to look at like the improvement from the freshman to sophomore year, and then that also just gives a huge potential to jump in that junior year.
So since you said that, I'm going to tell you why I'm not picking Laviolette, because that's who I think is going to win it. But because of what you just said, I'm taking Gavin Grahovac, because I don't think they put him on third team. I think he's going to be a top 5 pick next year. I think he could be every bit of a big deal as Jace. And what a position right now he's in when everybody's looking at Jace. The problem is he's going to bat in front of him. If he batted behind him, he'd really benefit from this if they decide to go around him. But I want to pick Laviolette, or pick Grahovac, just to go away from Laviolette, go with the underdog of the 2.
Yeah, the only reason I was thinking the same thing, the only reason I didn't go with him is just because I feel like there is definitely a slight favorite on the juniors and the older guys.
Well, here's the thing. We see this in every sport. If the 2 of them absolutely crush it together, they could take votes away from each other. So a guy like Jerry Jones, you just said, could creep in and take it.
Yeah. I don't know, man. I think LSU is going to.
You're saying, well, look at A&M. They had a duo that was unstoppable. Jared Jones, maybe didn't have that same protection, had to carry, the middle of his lineup. Those are things that can make compelling arguments.
100%. And you see that LSU team get back to another level potentially this year. And that just, I mean, it's kind of like the Heisman, right? Like where if your team does better, it looks better for you to win the Golden Spikes for sure. And I think LSU is going to have a great team this year. I see Jared Jones being kind of the dude in the middle of that lineup. And I think he's got the potential to hit 30-plus homers this year.
Yeah, I think for them, because of the depth and because Jay's going to have to figure things out, and Jay's a frustrating coach because if you go back to last year, he changed the lineup every single day. No consistency, no chance to get a feel. I know that drives the players nuts. And so the first few weeks, LSU fans, brace yourself. But I bring that up because their schedule is backloaded. So you have the front half to figure it out. And I like that. Because they're going to lose some games down that back half. But if you can get to where you feel like you have your best team and you can take, at least 2 of those last 4 series, if not 3, I think you'll put yourself in a good position. So I think it works to Jay's advantage with the way he likes to mess with the lineups. But I wouldn't be surprised if you see Jones at 3 locked in and then everybody around him shuffle. He's like the only person I would lock in to their batting spot.
It's crazy because, I know, like you said, people get frustrated with that lineup moving around so much earlier in the year. But with how good the SEC is, I mean, they've literally gotten to a point where it's almost a statistic. If you win 16 games, you're getting an automatic bid in the regional. So it's like, in their case, they can spend the whole first 6 weeks of the season, like you said, just figuring it out, plugging away, figuring out what lineup works to them. And as long as they figure it out by conference play, they're going to have all the opportunity to right the ship.
Yeah, because I don't think with their schedule, like those who are picking them to win the SEC, I just don't see it because their schedule is so difficult. But to your point, they just got to place themselves right. Like I don't put how often, last year Tennessee did it, but aside from that, how often does the team that wins the actual SEC win the championship? It's no different than the SEC tournament. Like Tennessee was the one team that's done it all and then it worked out. So for LSU, like you don't have to win the West. You only have to finish, like you said, 2nd or 3rd in the West. You finish 4th, get 16, 17 wins, you place yourself in the right position.
100%.
So who's your last of the 3?
My last is another kind of a sleeper, Nolan Schubart with Oklahoma State. Another guy, let me pull up his stats real quick. I mean, last year he was a 370 hitter with 23 home runs. He's a big dude, 6'5". So that's just another dude where if he could keep that power up, hit for close to 30 homers and keep that average up above 350, I mean, you're talking about numbers that are hard to beat. And I feel like he's getting a little bit of knock. We talked about how strong the SEC and the ACC is. He's getting a little bit of a underdog type mentality towards him because he's in the Big 12. But it's also, I mean, he's got the capability to dominate in the Big 12 this year.
Yeah, you have the ability to thrive because it's not as powerful for sure. Because the guys in the ACC and the SEC are going to be facing a harder competition. So I think he definitely benefits in being able to thrive. I'm going to go with the guy who was just on both our shows. And this is, once again, taking the input of those around me. Javero January, the best SEC umpire statistically, so not even just by my opinion, literally at a 99% clip calling balls and strikes. It's unreal. Was a former pro baseball player, lives down the street from me. He's a good friend. He sees me at the gas station the other day. I kid you not, he doesn't even know Trey's my next guest on the show. He goes, "I got my SEC player of the year pick for you." And I was like, "Who's that?" And he called him Phillips at first. And I'm like, "Who are you talking about?" And he goes, "Phillips, Georgia, black kid." And I said, "Phillips," and I was like, "What are you talking about?" And I got it. And so it took me a second to register what he's saying. And so then he starts talking about everything, and he just messed his name up. But he goes into all the reasons why. And this is somebody who gets to see him, everything. He's breaking down everything about his swing, his bat stance. And so he's like, "I'm telling you, that dude's a big leaguer already. He has all the tools." And so I was like, you know what? If he's going to pick him, he's going to be in my top 3. But we know the stats back Trey Phillips. Also, value and opinions. Charlie Condon said he has every bit of the ability to be a better player than him. And for Charlie to say that, I got to hold weight to that.
100%. And that's what I was just looking through his numbers before I had him on this past week. And the craziest thing that stuck out to me was we talk about just how hard it is to be a freshman everyday guy in the SEC nowadays. It's almost unheard of. That kid walked in the SEC and struck out only 14 times all year, which is ridiculous. I mean, I know if you threw me in the SEC my freshman year, I probably would have struck out almost 100 times. And yeah, I mean, he's got a great head on his shoulders, and it's also just you got to have guys around you in the lineup, right? And
I think Slade Alford's going to be the one that's going to have to really make, because Phelps had the advantage. Collins had the highest on base percentage in all of baseball last year, and then obviously Charlie Connon. So it's going to be about those other guys. Obviously, like I said, Alford, Colby Branch, some other guys. We're gonna see if that lineup. I think the biggest strength is what people. There's a lot of transfers in, and I know them a little bit more because like an Alton Davis or JT Quinn are guests of the show, but I know what the LSU guys told me about Wes Johnson. And Paul Skeens and Ty Floyd and all of them, Nate Aggenhouse, they all give all the credit to Wes. They said they molded him into something different. I look at guys like that. I mean, Alton even told me he had a 4-pitch mix when he got there. He has a 6-pitch mix now. So I think Wes Johnson, if that pitching staff pans out to what I think, and that lineup can be anything to what I hope, I think this could be an Omaha team finally for Georgia.
I agree. And I was just hearing from those guys about all the guys that they brought in from the portal. They got a lot of new faces, but a lot of talent, and it seems like they're coming together well. And like you said, they're going to have all the talent in the world to get back to Omaha.
No doubt. So here's the hardest thing. Preseason Omaha picks are the hardest thing. I never get more than 5 right because you don't know how the bracket's going to lay out. You can have the 8 best teams and project that right, but if they end up on the same side, it's not going to matter. So it's always a hard prediction. If you go 8 for 8, you need to buy a lottery ticket. But just looking at everything you have right now, it's all in fun. You're not inked in blood. But if you had to pick 8 teams right now, who would they be?
Oh, geez. This is, like you said, this is the hardest thing I always, and I've never had an Omaha 8 before, so this was super tough for me. I just put myself in a whirlwind and overthink everything. And
hey, I mean, I put Evan Russell to it right after the year after he retired, and I had him come on and do picks, and he's like, "This is weird. I'm just used to playing," and so I think that's probably what you're going through right now.
Right, and it's like you overthink everything because you want to pick the best teams, but in baseball, that's never how it works. It's never the best 8 teams in Omaha. Which it is changing now, though, as we saw last year. You got 4 ACC, 4 SEC. That usually didn't happen. You usually got some mid majors, and it's just
that
changing.
Guy from SEC filtered, unfiltered. They say a lot of stuff that I don't agree with, but when he said the Cinderellas, winning the national championship is over, I actually agree with that. Just some of these teams are so front loaded. It'd be hard for me to imagine them getting to Omaha and being able to get through a group of them.
Yeah, it's just the talent that's on these top teams now with the NIL and the portal. And it's like he was mentioning in that video, all these dudes on the group of 5 teams who go off. I mean, it's really hard for them not to go play in the SEC and ACC and make some money and want to go to Omaha, right? Like they all want to get there, and it gets to a certain point with how it's changing now where to do that, you got to go to one of these best teams. But I will, I'll just give you, I honestly, I haven't even finalized it. So this is going to be, I have 4 teams on my list right now, and the next 4 are just going to be some wild guesses. All so right. The 4 that I have in are Texas A&M, LSU, Virginia, and my little bit of a wild card is Mississippi State. Them just because last year you saw them, they weren't even ranked in the preseason, and they struggled towards the beginning of the year, but then they figured it out in SEC play, and they got to that 17 win mark. And I honestly think if they got past Virginia in that regional, that they were going to go to Omaha. And they got a lot of new faces. They got some older guys. He's actually one of my good buddies I played with in high school and in college at Cincinnati, Joe Powell. He's going to be doing some catching down there, so I'll be pulling for them big time. They're kind of my sleeper pick. And then the next 4, I'm probably going to have to go with – I like Florida State again.
when you got two arms that you can rely on, it's hard not to pick them because you just have to win a series, right? And when you configure to win two games, it's hard not to pick a team like because will their lineup meet expectations? But it's like I just keep going back to those two guys, and I'm like, you got to put them there.
Yeah, 100%. And then I think Georgia can get in there, so there we're up to 6. And then I'm gonna go with. I might have to go with Florida. I mean, just because of it seems like it doesn't matter what they have going in Gainesville, they're always going to figure out a way to get to Omaha. Kevin O'Sullivan, he's got the formula figured out down there, it seems like.
No doubt.
And then
the only reason I'm not picking, I don't have Florida mine is because I don't want more than 4 SEC teams. But
yeah,
I'm with you. I got A&M, LSU, Georgia. I think Tennessee's back. I think it's, first of all, the talent, but Tony V has shown that that's just where they're going to be. The one year they didn't was really an anomaly. We had the Giant Slayer, Jack Brannigan, on, and if he doesn't have the weekend he does, they were there that year. I got Florida State as well, got Virginia, and I got to go one homer pick because of my boys on that team, and that's Virginia Tech. Trayson Hughes and Garrett Michelle have me believing in that coaching staff and that roster. I'm going to have to see it. I'm going to go there and lay my eyes on it. But let me tell you the team that you don't have that you need to have. We just had Jacob Walsh on. Anson Aros is one of my boys. Not only has Oregon got the roster coming back, but I went through their schedule. That's the easiest schedule in America. They are going to be a top 8 seed because they're going to steamroll the Big Ten. I've never been a believer in the Big Ten when they hyped up Iowa last year. I said, I'm going to need to see it. Look what happened. And so I think they're going to steamroll through there. And if they got Oregon State at home at the end of the season, you prove yourself in that one. I see you being a top 8 and then taking care of business for who comes. But and plus I need them to eliminate the whole ACC SEC challenge.
Yeah, I think another one we're talking about just as far as having pitching to win a series. I think UC Santa Barbara might be one of those sleeper mid-major teams that can make it in. I mean, they got obviously Tyler Bremner, who's going to be a first rounder, a top pick in the draft. He'll be their dude. And then they got some other keys to their pitching staff, which I'm curious to see how they do down the road. Another team in the Big Ten is
well, before you got far off there, I wanted to talk about UCSB. So they have the same test. I was actually there for the opener at Campbell last year. Campbell, I think, is going to be a solid they're not going to be a team that I see making a run or anything. But when you talk about an opponent to really see what UCSB has out the gate, I think it's a good tester as opposed to some team that, is just, you're not going to be able to really see how they measure up.
100%. And I think the only thing they're going to have issues with is we'll see how the West Coast baseball does this year. Cause I know over the past couple of years, we've seen them take a big hit. And I like when we had West Coast teams in there. I don't
like the teams dispersing out of the Pac-12. We actually talked to Jacob Walsh about it, and he hates it. I think that part of that schedule, I don't think we're talking about guys who are competitors. They don't like an easier schedule. They want to have to play all the teams in the Pac-12 and grind.
Right. And then even the smaller like Fullerton and Long Beach and all these schools who used to kind of be a staple in the postseason, who are just taking a hit with this NIL stuff. I mean, it's really hard for them to compete with these bigger teams.
I think the teams that are going to be able to withstand it, I gave a list the other day, DBU, ECU, Southern Miss. I had 4 of them. Coastal Carolina, I think, was the other one. Yeah, maybe even a 5th one. I think those teams are the only one, because they've built a big enough name and brand, they can withstand it. I'm interested if you have DBU on your list, because I think if I'm going to pick a mid-major, I kind of like them.
Yeah, they've been knocking on the door for quite some time now, and I think they're going to have a really strong group. They were also on my sleeper teams as you can see, I like to look into more of the sleeper stuff than just the heavy favorites, just because I
Well,
feel
yeah,
like
because I
it's
mean, you can easily say, like, I've been on record a bunch of times saying, give me Texas A&M, LSU, and Tennessee against the field. Well, that's because their lineups say that it's going to be one of those three. The odds in Vegas say it's going to be one of those three, and Virginia. And so what you're doing is the research that makes it to where, yeah, we're not going to just pick the best. More than likely, it may play out like, it's supposed to, but I think baseball fans are rooting that one of these teams that you're picking is ultimately going up against one of those teams in the end.
100%. I think another team, I think I left a comment on one of your posts a month or so ago, who I expect to have a turnaround this year, is Auburn. I know we've seen them in Omaha in the past, and they really struggled last year. They brought in some recruits. I know that school's got money, and their fan base is definitely on board. I expect them to. It's just so tough when you look at the SEC, right? You talk about a team having a turnaround, but it's like, okay, well, there's still 6 to 7 teams that on paper are still better than them. So I'm interested to see what they do this year. I think they're going to
I put up my
have
top 25, and I put Auburn at 25, and I had, I think, 11 SEC teams ranked, and somebody's like, you really ranking 11 SEC? I mean, I was like, at the end of the day, it's a crapshoot on a lot of them because they're all going to be competing. They're all good, and only so many can be there. But I think there's enough of them that will be there.
Yeah, 100%. So
I got my hot take for you before we get off here, because I'm fixing to go there. I wanted to save it just in case you lost your mind on it, because I recently deleted Twitter because I can't take the fans, and like, if you say something they don't like, they go personal. Like, somehow if I rank somebody wrong or I say somebody's an overrated coach, like, my wife and kids got to be brought into it. People are crazy. And so I bring that up because one of my things I posted with the top 25 was I had Ole Miss above Mississippi State. And I wanted to say it when you said Mississippi State. I'm a believer in their pitching staff. I truly am, especially with Hunter Elliott coming back, Riley Maddox having another year under his belt, and the transfers coming in. I think Luke Hill is going to reemerge. Owen Pano is going to be a stud freshman. And so my hot take is for you, Ole Miss is going to be better than Mississippi State, who you just put in Omaha. That's why I was like grinding teeth when you said it.
No, I mean, I'm with that. I'm a Bianco fan too. I think he's a great dude. I know people like to give him some shit sometimes, and he was on the hot seat there for a little bit, but he just seems like a great guy, man. He knows how to motivate his players, and
Drew's an amazing dude, and I talked to him last week, and when he had saw that I put him in there, he's like, you're going to be the only one that's right. He said, I'm telling you right now, pay attention. And it's easy for him to say that with his dad. But I don't know, man, he was really pushing to tell me that this team was going to be better than everybody thought. We'll see how it plays out. What I want is both of them to be good, because I have been firm that 3 years ago when I was at Ole Miss at Mississippi State was, and usually every year, no matter if the teams are that good, but specifically when they were both at the top, that series and that environment was unrivaled.
Yeah, I'm making my first trip to the Dude this spring, so I'm pretty pumped about that. I'm heading down there for when Florida comes to town, so it should be rocking. They got 2 night games on ESPN.
You got to go over to the left field lounge. I'll hook you up with the lounge dog. They'll feed you. Don't expect anything from you. They just like to show off that they can cook and have a good time out there. But yeah, take it all in. It is the Mecca. When I see these lists and people that want to put Baum Walker ahead of Duty Noble, I'm like, just don't. And like, I'm an LSU fan, so it's not like I'm just like Mississippi State, even just right on the outside of the front gates, it hits different. And then when you got the loss, when you got the left field lounge, it's a complete vibe. And not everybody even out there is just about the wins and losses. They just like to hang out and watch Mississippi State baseball and be around their people. There's not much to do in Starkville either. So it's like the thing to do. Like at Ole Miss, like if Ole Miss starts losing, fans will start leaving the game early because there's a million different places to go outside. Starkville, like we're all in on this baseball team.
Yeah, that's what I was talking to my buddy who's playing down there, and it's like he was saying, he's like, dude, you know how we grew up and like we had our college teams, but I'm growing up in Cincinnati. He's like, we're huge Reds fans, we're huge Bengals fans. Like we got all this stuff to do. It's like, dude, in Starkville, they got the Bulldogs for all their sports, and that's about it. I mean, they are
I mean, as soon as the
100%
football
locked in.
teams showed that they weren't going to be any good, baseball season was it that for all of them. Baseball season had already started. They couldn't wait till move-in day to move in, all their cookers and the scrimmages to start. So they live it, they breathe it, especially with this football just not giving them much. But I love it. It's an atmosphere unlike any other, and I love every time somebody goes there for the first time. The reviews are all the same. But I feel that way about a lot of places. It's taking in the whole experience. It's like I said, I started last year with Campbell. They brought us in with open arms. Coach Hare and the players took care of us, but then the parents, the fans that I met, and even for an early, season thing, it was something. And you take that all the way to Omaha where, oh man, like there's something to be said about that first weekend because it's fans of teams that aren't even there just having a blast. It's not like the last game where you're going to have the fans specifically of the two teams, but you just have baseball fans everywhere.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody has a disdain for anybody. We're just all here to enjoy this event. And I think that's college baseball at its best. And I think it's just going to keep getting there as more and more people learn about going to all these different places. The one thing I've learned, if anything, though, going to a place when my team is not there. Because you can get a negative vibe when people are obviously booing and talking bad about your team. So if you go there as a neutral fan and enjoy it for all it is, that's the best way I tell people to go. So I say that in regards to Omaha. Like if your team isn't there, don't use it as a reason to not go.
100%. And that's what I already I went last year with I went out there to watch my roommate Ryan Nicholson with Kentucky. I went to the Super Regional and then made the trip out to Omaha. And that's what, like you said, that first weekend I was just booked an Airbnb about a week ago to go back out. So I'm 100% in on going. But I was looking at the same thing. I was like, do I want to go to the championship weekend? Because I don't have the funds and the ability to stay out there for 10 days. But I booked the opening weekend just because I loved last year. I showed up on the first day and you got all 8 teams. And like you said, you got just a ton of baseball fans who could care less who's there, but they're just there to watch baseball. And it's a super unique place and experience. There's a reason I already booked to go back again. It's absolutely awesome.
Smart about doing it early, obviously. The people who wait to see what the teams are, you're gonna pay to wait to see who's there.
Well, that's I bookmarked 2 Airbnbs just looking ahead because I know how it can be, and got on a week later and they're both booked. So I was like, you know what, screw it. I'm getting in on one now. So
yeah, my first trip there in 2021, it was funny. I was there with the Mississippi State families. We had been tied in with them all year. We leave because I was like, there's no way I'm going to stay here the whole time. Well, they lose that first game. And Cameron James' dad is like, why'd you leave? And I was like, I mean, I can't stay there all the time. He's like, no, he's like, your son's our good luck charm. Come on back. Anyway, I was like, you serious? So I drove back, and then obviously Mississippi State goes on to win it. We're in the team hotel. Jackson's getting to live his best life, and that's why he bleeds maroon now, and I can't withdraw it. But we've been there the whole ride all 4 years, and it does get long. I would say, like, it's really not even just the financial aspect. It can be a long time to be away from home. I've been blessed that in all 4 cases, as I've put out there, the most guests that we've had from every team has won it. So, like, last year, for instance, LSU's not there, but I know all the Tennessee families and tailgaters, so able to just go through the whole experience. But it gets long. But I would say that if you have the right vested interest to stay the whole time, I would do it. But that opening weekend is definitely, I mean, even stuff like the Jello shot challenge, right? There's so many people who like to hate on that. They're like, it's not even good. Like, the Jello sucks. That's nobody's drinking it for the taste. It's just to be a part of a competition within a competition.
Right. Yeah. That's what I actually spent a decent amount of time at Rocco's when I was there last year, and I loved it. It was just like, that anyone walking in there probably has some affiliation or interest with the College World Series. So it's all baseball fans. I got to meet a bunch of people from different fan bases, which for me, I mean, that's what it's all about. I mean, that's what it's all about when I have these players on too. It's one thing to go through their stats and and talk about how good they are, but it's also the experiences that they go through.
Well, you brought up Kentucky, right? Like, one of my favorite things was Hunter Gilliam texting me and meeting me because he wanted to be all in on the Omaha experience because he didn't get to experience it as a player. And so
I was out there with him for those.
And
I was hanging out with him every day out there.
And I bring that up because the first place he went was Rocco's, and he had to get Kentucky shots. But and that's the thing, right? To your point, like, it's an experience. And what I love was people were sending me money for shots, and I'm not going to drink that many. So I was finding the fans of the fan base that sent them to me. And, you know, it's, to your point, it starts a great conversation. You know, go back to 2023 was one of my favorite ones. I had a whole bunch of Wake Forest ones sent to me, and there was a group of Wake Forest fans, and I brought a Che over and just started having a conversation, and then just, you know, had fun with them for like an hour. And that's something, without that shot, that tray of Jello shots, how do you walk up and just, you know, have a great conversation? But you walk up with a tray, hey, you just became their friend.
Yeah, 100%. That's what I got. I don't know if you know who Billy Liucci. He kind of runs TexAgs with Texas A&M. Big media for all of their sports, and I just randomly got sat right next to him at Rocco's, and all these Texas A&M fans are coming over to him, and I'm like, hey, like, who is this guy? I didn't know who he was at first, but I get to talking to him, and he's a great dude, and just talking to all the fans, it was awesome.
Yeah, this will be my final thing on that. We can cut loose because I'm running late, but this will make you laugh when I talk about the difference between Omaha and being at someone's stadium. So the Arkansas fans in 2022 were amazing, and I thought about it because of what you just said. Like, I was in there at Rocco's, and that was actually what led to a lot of like my Twitter followers from Arkansas. Well, then last year when I went to Baum and just had the worst weekend ever on how I was treated from the time I walked in wearing LSU. So they didn't treat me the same, even though I was wearing LSU in, you know, Omaha. They didn't treat me the same when I was in Baum Walker. And then on Twitter, it's the same thing. And it's like, it's something about, because I think there's just this relief when your team's in Omaha too, versus that SEC grind, and you're an SEC foe coming in there. So that was the series though why I'll never go in as an opposing fan, because man, I was getting cursed as soon as I got in. I was like, where the heck am I? Hey, don't go to the opposing stadiums if you're rooting for the other team, or at least if you do, don't wear it proudly, because it's not going to go well.
Yeah, no, I don't have any plans of places I have to go. I'll probably be rooting for the home team. So
I am going to A&M. I say that, but I am going to A&M this year. But Grahovac and Jace told me that they would put the word. It was funny because it sounds like sarcasm. We'll put the word on the street so you don't have your Arkansas experience. But I'm going to go there. I'm just what I just said. I'm not going to wear LSU though. Like, I'm not obviously wearing A&M. I'm going full neutral colors the whole time, and I'll show no emotion one way or the other. I'll get some good conversations and some video feed. But I've had enough players come on here and tell me about A&M fans giving them the business. I have a feeling it could definitely have those same vibes as what happened to Arkansas. So I'm gonna play it safe, play it clean. But I got to go there because so many players have said that's the hardest place for them to play. I mean, specifically pitchers have said it feels like they're on top of you. It's loud. And I want to be there to see and verify. And when we're talking about LSU coming to town, I can't imagine it getting louder than for that.
Yeah, that's what, I don't know if you asked. I asked Trey Phelps the same question the other day, and he had said Texas A&M without a doubt. He said most people, like, biggest environment was Mississippi State, but as far as those fans being locked in every single pitch and on your ass from pitch one, he said A&M was the place to be.
It's always quality over quantity. And I say that because I was at the LSU Tennessee series where they set the record in 2023 when Skeens and Dolander were going head to head. And then I was just in Knoxville for all the postseason. And I'm going to tell you right now, that 7,000 in Lindsey Nelson was louder than that 13,500 in Alex Box. It's not always about the quantity. If you get the right 7,000, and I say that because A&M I think holds like 8,800. Like, they're not in the top 5 in the numbers, but that 8,800 is going to make sure you feel them.
Yeah, for sure.
But we'll do this again. We'll get Adam Cesare 100% wants to be on this. Like, it's what we were just talking about. He's out of the game now, but he wants to 100% be engrossed in it. Obviously, Daniel, I know the Batter's Eye podcast, Aiden, I believe, is wants to do it. So we'll collaborate once the season, maybe a couple weeks in, just kind of see where some of the teams are and get into it. But I definitely want to get into it when you got more time. But I like getting your thoughts, and we got our early predictions in there just to see how they go. But I really appreciate you. And for those who are listening, where can they find all your information, all your show stuff?
Yeah, so if you just search the Road to Omaha podcast, we're on Instagram, X, or Twitter, TikTok, and then now YouTube. Just started that YouTube channel. Plan on doing like some vlog type deals when I get to go to these games. So pretty pumped up about that. But yeah, just search the Road to Omaha podcast. Should be able to find it on all of those platforms.
And then something I'll tell you to do if you're doing video, it's amazing, especially because you're a former player. But when they find out you have a vested interest in the game, growing the game, and it's not like personal gains, they'll let me. People always ask how I tour facilities. I just ask. And you get to go check out the locker rooms, walk on the field, check out everything. So if you're going to these places, message, someone from the staff. Sometimes it's just as easy as asking the coach, but saying, hey, I'm going to be there checking it out, covering it this weekend. Would love to tour the facilities. Man, I've done it like 15 times over with my son. So if you do hit a bunch of places, get that, put the video, because people love just seeing the facilities. Because, I mean, these guys, man, you talk about the MLB to NCAA. Man, there's so many teams that got better facilities than these MLB guys. It's crazy.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I will. I'll definitely keep that in mind. I appreciate you sharing that info with me.
Absolutely. Well, y'all go check out his podcast. Follow him on social media. Me and Daniel will be back this upcoming week. Baseball, man. It is 6 days away. We're so close. But I'm gonna head out to Oxford now. Man, you have a good weekend. Everybody enjoy their weekend, and we'll see you next week.
Yes, sir. We'll keep in touch.
Later.